Hey guys! So today we are going to look at Zoo and we're going to analyze it together. So you've already previewed it. You know that this is a science fiction story. You've looked at the point of view, you looked at some of the characters, and so today we're going to read it and we're really going to analyze what it's talking about. So let's get started. The children were always good during the month of August, especially when it began to get near the 23rd. It was on this day that Professor Hugo's Interplanetary Zoo settled down for its annual 6-hour visit to the Chicago area. So let's look at interplanetary. When I look at that word, I see that it has inter, which is a root and a prefix that means between. So interplanetary means something that goes between planets. So this is not just a zoo that only goes to Earth, it's something that goes between planets. And that clue is given to us with the name of that zoo. And I know that Chicago is a city in the United States, so we know that this is on Earth or in America. I see that the children knew that this was going to happen, so it must be important or something that they're familiar with or used to. Before daybreak, the crowds would form long lines of children and adults both, each one clutching his or her dollar and waiting with wonderment to see what race of strange creatures the professor had brought this year. So we see this is very popular. Lots of people come to enjoy this, and the professor who has an interplanetary zoo is bringing creatures, strange creatures. So I wonder what he's going to be bringing. In the past, they had sometimes been treated to three-legged creatures from Venus, or tall, thin men from Mars, or even snake-like horrors from somewhere more distant. This year, as the great round ship settled slowly to Earth in the huge Tri-City parking area just outside of Chicago, they watched with awe as the sides slowly slid up to reveal the familiar barred cages. In them were some wild breed of nightmare, small, horse-like animals that moved with quick, jerking motions and constantly chattered in a high-pitched tongue. The citizens of Earth clustered around as Professor Hugo's crew quickly collected the waiting dollars, and soon the good professor himself made an appearance wearing his many-colored rainbow cape and top hat. "Peoples of Earth," he called into his microphone. Okay, so some things we want to notice here. The way that the author describes these creatures is very interesting. A wild breed of nightmare. So nightmares aren't great. So this is something very strange and maybe a little bit scary. Small horse-like animals, snake-like horrors. So again, things that maybe just are a little bit scary, something we're not used to. And it's an interesting choice of words that the author uses. So here we can look at, what do the descriptions reveal about the humans' feelings toward the animals? And I feel like they're supposed to be curious, but not curious in a good way. Curious to see something strange. Kind of the phenomenon when something bad happens, you want to look because you want to see, even though you find it disturbing. So that's the feeling that the author gives there. The crowd's noise died down and continued. "Peoples of Earth, this year you see a real treat for your single dollar. The little known horse spider people of Khan, brought to you across 1,000,000 miles of space at great expense. Gather around, see them, study them, listen to them, tell your friends about them, but hurry, my ship can remain here only 6 hours." So these spider people he gathered from very far away and brought them here. And you wonder, how did he get away with that? Did he capture them? Like, how did he get these horse spider people to get on his ship? And why can it only remain for 6 hours? Is he going to other places? And the crowd slowly filed by, at once horrified and fascinated by these strange creatures that looked like horses but ran up the walls of their cages like spiders. "This is certainly worth $1, one man remarked, hurrying away. "I'm going home to get the wife." So again, you can see they're horrified but fascinated. So They're a little bit scared of these creatures and disturbed, but they want to see them and they want to share with other people. He's going home to get his wife, so he wants to share what he's found. All day long, it went like that until 10,000 people had filed by the barred cages set into the side of the spaceship. Then, as the 6 hour limit ran out, Professor Hugo once more took the microphone in hand. We must go now, but we will return next year on this date. And if you enjoyed our zoo this year, telephone your friends in other cities about it. We will land in New York tomorrow, and next week on to London, Paris, Rome, Hong Kong, and Tokyo, then on to other worlds. He waved farewell to them as the ship rose from the ground. The Earth peoples agreed that this had been the very best zoo yet. So, I'm going to stop and point out in the past, when this story was written, zoos were not like we know them today. So, in the past, zoos were collections of animals in cages, and they would either be on trains or in on trucks pulled down the road, and people would come to the zoo to see them, but they were traveling zoos. And so our story is written in that way. So the people who read the story when it was written were used to seeing the traveling zoos, and so that's why it's written this way. Some 2 months and 3 planets later, the silver ships of Professor Hugo settled at last onto the familiar jagged rocks of Khan, and the odd horse spider creatures quickly filed out of their cages. Professor Hugo was there to say a few parting words, and then they scurried away in 100 different directions, seeking their homes among the rocks. So here we see there is a shift in setting. It's not Earth anymore, it's the planet of Khan, and apparently this is where the horse spider creatures live. And we see that Professor Hugo did not capture them. He's returned them, and they don't seem upset or scared. They're going back to their homes. In one house, the she creature was happy to see the return of her mate and offspring. She babbled a greeting in the strange tongue and hurried to embrace them. It was a long time you were gone. Was it good? So here we have to make some inferences. She creature, I'm going to infer, is the mother. Her mate would be the husband or the father. And offspring, I know offspring means child. So it looks like the father and child went on a trip. And the he creature nodded. The little one enjoyed it especially. We visited 8 worlds and saw many things. So they've been on a trip. They visited 8 different planets. The little one ran up the wall of the cave. On the place called Earth, it was the best. The creatures there wear garments over their skins, and they walk on 2 legs. So here we're starting to get an idea that perhaps these creatures went on a trip to see other places and other creatures. And they're people called, they're noticing people from Earth, creatures from Earth. But isn't it dangerous? Asked the she creature. No, her mate answered. There are bars to protect us from them. We remain right in the ship. Next time you must come with us. It is well worth the 19 kalmaks it cost. And the little one nodded. It was the very best zoo ever. So here we see that Professor Hugo took these creatures and presented them to Earth as a zoo. However, they presented to the horse spider creatures, spider horse creatures, they presented the people of Earth as a zoo. So both creatures thought that they were being taken to a zoo when they were actually used as the zoo. Both sides of this equation, both sets of creatures thought that the bars were there to protect them from the creatures, and they both thought it was the very best zoo ever. So this story speaks to the theme of universal curiosity. Everyone, every creature is curious about things that they don't understand, things that they don't know a whole lot about. And so Professor Hugo was able to use this curiosity that he knows creatures have in order to convince the horse spider creatures to get in a spaceship and go be a zoo without them realizing it, of course. And he was able to get lots of people to pay $1 to come see these different creatures. So Professor Hugo was able to kind of manipulate that universal curiosity that people tend to have and creatures tend to have. You can also see up at the top, our story is written in third person omniscient. So we see what the people in the crowds are thinking. But after paragraph 7, it switches, and then the story is written in third person limited. And so we don't get as clear of an idea of what our characters are thinking, only what they're saying. All right, I hope that you enjoyed this Analyze the Story, and we will see you next time.